Hello friends and family, welcome to Come Sit at My Table. My name's Tom, my wife Melissa is videoing for us. Melissa has been asking for a few days for some homemade biscuits. So this morning we are going to make Southern Buttermilk Biscuits. Now a lot of people, when they think about making homemade biscuits, it kind of freaks them out. But biscuits are easy to make. Don't be afraid to try biscuits. Let's talk about what you're going to need to make these Southern Buttermilk Biscuits. You're going to start with 3 cups of all-purpose flour. You're also going to need 3 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. Make sure you have baking powder. 3 3/4 teaspoons. You're also going to need 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Now there's a big difference in baking powder and baking soda. So you're going to need 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. You're going to need just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Very little bit of salt. And then you're also going to need 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. The next thing you're going to need is 3/4 cup, which is 1.5 sticks, of very cold butter that you have cubed up into small cubes. I cube mine and then stick it back in the refrigerator for a little while to let it firm up really well before I use it. Or if I need it soon, I will cube it and stick it in the freezer for a few minutes before I use it, just so it can get really nice and firm. And the last thing you're going to need is 1 1/4 cups of whole buttermilk. Make sure you're using whole buttermilk, none of that low fat or fat-free stuff. This gives it good flavor. Okay, this goes together really quickly. Let's get rid of all this stuff that we've already measured out and don't need anymore. So we're just going to take our flour and we're going to dump in our baking powder, baking soda, salt, and sugar. Dump all that in. And we're going to mix that up just a little bit so it's incorporated. Just kind of use your whisk or a fork or your fingers. You cannot make biscuits without getting your fingers in them. So if you don't want to use your fingers, go buy you a can of Pillsbury, I guess. I don't know. But you're going to have to use your fingers. Then we're going to take our butter that we have cubed up and we're going to put that in. And the first thing I do when I get that in is I just kind of toss it around. You want flour coating every little piece of that butter because you don't want it sticking together. So, and if you see any big pieces, just break them apart and make sure they're tossed in the flour really well. And I think you can see here, that's what they're going to look like after you've tossed them. They're going to be covered really well with that flour. Okay, get the flour off my hands. And now we're just going to take a pastry cutter and cut that butter in. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't have a pastry cutter, that is just perfectly fine. My grandmother never had a pastry cutter in her life. You know what she used? She used her fingers. And you say, well, how do you do that to cut it in? You just pick up the butter and you rub it. Just mash it into smaller pieces. That's all you have to do. And that's what she did her whole life. And I'll be honest and tell you, I don't think I ever saw either one of my parents make homemade biscuits. My parents were busy and I don't remember them doing that. They always used canned biscuits. But when I started cooking and I decided to make some homemade biscuits, guess who I went to?
Not your mom and dad.
Nope. Called my mama. And of course she said, well, come to my house and I'll show you how to do it. And she was such a good cook. She knew what she was doing in the kitchen. So you don't have to have fancy tools to cook. My grandmother never had any kind of fancy tools. She just used her fingers. Used a fork. You can use 2 knives to cut this in. And I'll show you how you can do that. Not that I need to, because that's pretty much cut in. And all you have to do is take 2 knives and pull through it. Just like that. Just cut your butter up. Just go through, and when you've done that enough, your butter will be in small pieces. Just cut it in there. That's how you do it with 2 knives. So use your fingers, use 2 knives, use a pastry cutter. Some people even use a box grater, and they grate frozen flour in, or grate frozen butter into the flour. And that's what I've done a lot, but today I'm just using my pastry blender. And then of course we want all that off there. That's got a little bit of butter stuck to it, and we want that off there because that butter is going to help your biscuits to rise. Okay, so now we're going to stir in our 1 1/4 cups of buttermilk. And after we get this stirred in, we may need a little bit more, but we'll see. It depends. Depends a lot on your flour, really. So let's just start stirring that in. Notice I'm not stirring it vigorously. I'm kind of stirring under and over. Just want to get that flour wet. Is my arm in the way of the camera? Sorry. I'm left-handed, and I feel like on almost every video, my hand or my arm get in the way. Now, I want you to look at this dough. It is not a ball of dough like what you think of if you're making homemade bread. You can see that right now, it's very crumbly. Look at it. See that? See how crumbly it is? That's okay. That's what you want. But here's how we know if it's ready. If we pick up a handful of it and we squeeze it and it becomes a ball of dough, then it's probably ready. If it falls apart like that, you might need just a little bit more buttermilk. So I'm going to drizzle in just another couple tablespoons of buttermilk. And mix that in. Okay. I think that's enough. I hope it is. All right. We are going to work it together some, so that will help it stick together.
Looks very sticky right now.
It is. That's okay because we're going to be adding more flour as we work it. All right, I'm going to wash my hands off real quick, and I will be right back. All right, I have washed my hands off, got the dough off of them. I'm putting a little bit of flour on my board here. This is just actually it's something called a no-mess dough disc, and you can't get them any longer. The company quit making them, but I have used this one to death.
Thank you, Mama.
Yeah, my grandmother gave it to us as a Christmas gift. I think when we first got married. I've had it forever. So.
Because we've been married forever.
Well, we've been married a long time, baby. How long? Do you know?
I do know. 28 years, thank you.
Yep. We're headed into number 29. Okay, so I've got all my biscuit mix out, And I'm just going to start pushing it together. You know, I should have put a little flour on my hands and on top of this. So I'm going to do that. Flour my hands up a little bit. Okay. We're going to start pushing it and trying to force it into a dough. Do you see those pieces of butter in there? You see that? Mm-hmm. That's going to, as it bakes, that butter is going to get hot and melt and steam, and it will be what helps our biscuits to rise up. So you want those pieces of butter in there. We're just going to press and press and press and try to make this into a dough. And I'm going to tell you, it's a little crumbly. I don't know. I think it needs a little more liquid. So you know what? This is what we do. Hey, this happens. I'm going to put it right back in this bowl. And I'm going to put a little more buttermilk in it. That's what happens sometimes, folks.
Better to figure it out now than later.
Yep. Put another tablespoon right there.
So, is there a difference in flour, like
absolutely
the dryness of it or something?
Absolutely. Every bag of flour you get is different. I'm just going to do it with my hands. And I know it'll be sticky and messy, but I don't care. I'm going to put just another tablespoon right there, because that's not wanting to stick. I'm just going to tell you, baking is an experiment. There is nothing about it that turns out the same every time. Okay, that is much better. You do not need to cut the camera. I'm just going to get this off my hands real quick. Okay, now let's put a little more flour on our no mess dough disc. I sure wish they still made these, because I would love to have another one, and I would love to be able to give these as gifts, but they don't. Okay, let's try this again. Now, we'll put a little flour right on top of it. Now, oh yeah, that is so much better. You don't need a rolling pin. You can. If you want to use a rolling pin, you can. These are just as good as a rolling pin. You want to press your dough out. So it's about 3/4 of an inch thick, maybe an inch thick. You don't want them too thin because you want nice high biscuits. There's a piece of butter right there. Ooh, that one's gonna be good.
What temperature did you say we were baking these at?
That's a good question. We have preheated our oven to 400 degrees. And we'll bake them for approximately 18 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes. You'll just have to watch them. I'd probably start watching them at about, I'd start watching them at about 15 minutes and just see.
Sometimes I feel like our oven bakes really hot since we have the gas oven now.
Yeah. We had always had an electric stove since we got married, and several months ago we decided we wanted gas, so we put gas in, and it does bake hot.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah. So honestly, you'll just have to watch your oven. All ovens are calibrated differently, so you'll just have to know what your oven does. All right, now I'm just using a 3-inch biscuit cutter. You do not need a biscuit cutter. My grandmother never had a biscuit cutter in her life. Do you know what she used?
I do.
What she used?
I'm pretty sure it was a green bean can.
It was.
She was fancy.
She had a green bean can that she had had for as long as I could remember. When I was a child, I think she had the same green bean can, and she had cut both ends out of it, and it was open like this, except it was a long green bean can, and that's what she used to cut out her biscuits. So you can use anything. You don't have to have fancy tools. So I want you to see how I did that. One thing you don't want to do is push down and twist your biscuit cutter. That seals the edge of your biscuit and keeps it from raising. So just go straight down and straight up. That's all you have to do. And then once I get them over on the sheet, I like to press them out just a little bit. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know why I do that. But I've always done that. Cut them out, put them on the sheet, press them down a little bit. Up and down, press them out a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna move this. I keep sticking my biscuit cutter in the flour just because I don't want the edge of it to stick and make a mess of my biscuit dough. So that gave us, that's number 7. And I'm gonna press that up a little bit so that I can get number 8 out of there. Okay, there's 8. You know what I'm gonna do with this leftover dough?
Well, I know you, and you're not gonna waste it.
You are exactly right, because I don't like to waste anything. So, that is just sticky right there.
Have you ever frozen these before you bake them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. I hadn't thought about doing that, but after you make these, you can stick them in the freezer. Just don't have them touching. Leave some space between them. And
they'll all freeze together.
They'll freeze together in a big hunk. And you don't want that. But just stick them in the freezer and let them freeze solid. And then store them either in Ziploc freezer bags or in vacuum seal bags. And then you can take out whatever you want, you know, a few at a time, and bake those. But yeah, we tend not to keep them around that long. All right. There's number 10.
Gonna be able to get a dozen or not?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Looks like maybe 11.
Yeah.
So there's number 11. Push those down that I missed at the end there. Okay. So 9, 10, 11, and there's not enough there to do another one. And that just kills me. kills me that I've wasted that little bit of dough, but that's okay. All right.
Anything go on top?
I don't think I'm going to. I have put buttermilk on them before. I've put butter on them before, but honestly, I kind of like the way they bake up when they're just plain like this, when they don't have anything on top of them. And Melissa and I do not like a burned biscuit. My dad, love his heart, he liked all of his bread burned. And I don't mean brown. He wanted it burned, or I considered it burned. Melissa and I do not like burned biscuits. So, all right, in they go. 400 degrees for about 18 minutes. It might take a little longer, 18 to 20 minutes. Timer, 18. And while those are baking, I will clean up the mess, and when they come out of the oven, we'll be back to show you our biscuits. Our new oven, which is a gas oven, bakes really hot. These have only been in for about 13 minutes, but honestly, I think they're done. So I'm taking them out. Now you will just have to watch your oven and see what you think. And these are to our likeness. We just don't like over-baked biscuits. So, these in the middle aren't as brown, but they feel done.
They look exactly the way I like them.
Yeah, these are the ones we like right here. These are good. They're not overdone. Yum. All right, I'm going to get a plate and I'm going to fix this one.
Unfortunately, I have to wait until I get back from the dentist. I just brushed and flossed and all those things.
Yeah, I forgot.
But I'll have one when I get back.
Okay, look at these. Look how nice that is. Wait, my arms, there we go.
It's a nice biscuit. Looks very
Isn't
good.
that a pretty biscuit? Look at that. And the bottom's not overly done. I mean, it's plenty done, but it's just, I think it's perfectly done. Now, if you're like my dad was, and you might want to add like 20 more minutes. I don't know. Love his heart. He
liked them crunchy.
Yeah, he did. Look how those just fall apart. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. Now, I told you at the beginning, there are people that just kind of freak out when they think about making homemade biscuits. And folks, you could see that was not hard. That's very easy.
Canned biscuits have made us a little lazy, I suppose. But
I agree.
and they're okay. They're not as good as anything you make homemade, obviously.
Well, I think that's true with anything, but that's just me.
And when you can make these and freeze them before you bake them, that sure would make it
Yeah, that's true.
easier.
Makes it much easier. Now I've got some of our homemade blueberry jam. Yummo. I love just about any jam or jelly. But oh my goodness. Homemade blueberry jam. Ugh. It's so good. We actually got blueberries from a young man that lives here near us. We know his family. And he has blueberry bushes. And so when those come in, we buy blueberries. Are you sure you don't want to
Oh my goodness, it's almost worth having to brush and floss over, but I'm not going to because I've got to go to the dentist.
Okay, here I go. It's not going to be a princess bite.
It never is.
If you're in a time crunch and you just have to pop open a can of biscuits, but this does not take long. They are so good. So much better than canned biscuit. Okay, you saw how easy that was. We really do appreciate that you're watching our videos. If you would go right below this video and click the thumbs up and give us a like so that we know you enjoyed our video, we would appreciate that. If you haven't already, go over on the other side and click the subscribe button. You only have to do that once. And a little notification bell beside of it that'll let you know when we have a new video up. And of course, if you would, share our videos. Click the share button and put it on your own page or send it to your friends and family. Let them know about us. And we appreciate all the kind comments that we've received on our other videos. We thank you so much for that. All right. Most of all, most importantly, remember, you are always welcome to come sit at my table. Have a wonderful day and go bake yourself some biscuits. See ya.